All the things you said, running through my head, running through my head. All the things you said, all the things you said. This is not enough. Hello and welcome to the next episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies, the podcast where Matt and Todd went and saw a movie at our local Regal cinema, and now we're going to talk about it in the parking structure right next to the theater, right after the movie, in Matt Time to Pilot. We're going to try to talk about such things as, should you see this movie? Should you not see this movie? Do you need some snacks? Should you hold off? Do you need to pay attention? Can you joke with friends? Whatever and everything to deal with this movie, we will try to touch on, or maybe we won't. I don't know. But I would like to take a pause for a second and give some props. Since moving to this theater, I feel like almost every week there's the same skateboarder out skateboarding in the parking structure. And I don't know his name, don't know anything about him, but props to him. Maybe one day we'll tell him that, but maybe we won't. I don't know. I am Todd Domer.
And I'm Matt Malloy, and I feel like, Todd, you can always joke with friends. No matter how intense the movie gets, there's always time for a joke.
I agreed.
Well, yeah, so we saw a movie. The movie is called Bottoms, and unfortunately Tim is not with us tonight to tell us who's in this movie. However, I'll do that, and I'll tell you that of famous people in this movie, there's really Marshawn Lynch, a former NFL football player. And I recognized Ayo Edebiri, who's one of the main actresses in this movie, one of the two main actresses. And she, if you watch the show The Bear, she is the sous chef in that movie, or in that show, rather. So she's kind of second in command at the Bear restaurant, formerly known as The Beef.
I do want to watch that show. I just don't think I have access to it, unfortunately.
You should watch it. It's on Hulu.
I don't have.
Oh, okay. Well, one day, maybe it'll be on something else, or maybe you'll have Hulu.
Yeah, who knows?
Anyway, I recommend the show.
Possibilities are endless.
It's a good watch. But anyway, back to our main event here, which is talking about Bottoms. So what is this movie about? Well, this movie is a high school parody, comedy, dramedy thing. It's about two gay high school students, lesbians, who are out to find love. They want to have sex.
And they have their crushes.
Yeah. They're not sure whether their crushes are gay or not, but they have their crushes, and they're scheming about how maybe one day they'll be with their crushes. So, what they decide to do, it's the beginning of the school year, there's a big football game coming up against a hated rival, and what they end up doing, I won't say they decided to do this, they kind of fell into this idea, but they start what they call a fight club that they rebrand a little bit as a self-defense club, and the idea behind this is that they'll get young women, girls to come to this club at high school, and they'll get to kind of wrestle around with them, and maybe they'll fall in love, and maybe something will happen, and maybe their crushes will come. And so in the process of starting this, there are some lies told, as they are in these type of comedies, these high school comedies, which eventually come back around to bite them in the butt and end up breaking up friendships and relationships, which have to then be repaired later. And it all kind of vaults its way through the movie, through all of the emotional and relational drama, to the culmination of the movie, which is this football game, which the fight club or self-defense club has to step in and take control of what's going on. And there's a big fight scene at the end, and that's what I'm going to say about this movie. It's quite absurd. It's quite a ride, and it's something.
It's something.
It's something. So I'll leave it there, and I'll ask you, Todd, for your gut reaction to the movie Bottoms.
And I will give it. So your description of the movie and your middle description when you were saying, lies were told and those lies come out like,
Yeah.
as they do in these type of movies is my biggest problem with this movie.
Uh-huh.
It did not need that at all, I felt. Like, and I thought it got lazy by including that, like, to make it close to any, like, I think they were just trying to do that to fit into a category maybe, and I thought it was a big distraction. It's the biggest part of the movie I don't like. It just wasn't needed. Like, none of the themes, in my opinion, of this movie benefited from having that storyline in it. And I thought that's a travesty because I thought this movie did a pretty good job of mirroring a serious story with ridiculousness. Like, it wasn't at all times a parody and it wasn't at all times a serious movie. It borrowed from elements from both, which at times was distracting, I will admit. Like, you kind of get sucked into a serious scene and then something super ridiculous happens and you're like, well, that's kind of jarring. But I thought the idea for the movie and the execution of the movie was unique enough that it didn't need that subplot in it, and I thought the subplot was a huge distraction. And it just fell into, like, I thought this could have been something elevated past a typical movie in this genre or in this kind of, I don't know, storytelling. I thought that they relied too much on what we do already for storytelling in this specific story. And I thought for me, it was a huge minus to the movie. Because other than that, I thought there were a lot of good things going for this movie. The themes of the movie, I think, are serious and pertain to a lot of what people experience today, mainly high schoolers, except for all the ridiculous parody and over-the-top stuff. But that brings you back into the movie to, like, laugh about it and stuff like that while you're kind of getting kind of like a lesson in culture, I would say. But that storyline was just so off-putting to me, in thinking that they had something special on their hands. But by kind of reverting back to what we already know and what we experience a lot was such a misstep. And my other negatives before I get to the positives were Marshawn Lynch is not an actor, and like I can't stress that enough. He doesn't tank every scene he's in, but it just felt awkward at times because I'm like, if you're gonna get, like, I don't know, if you're gonna try to get name recognition for your movie, like, maybe, like, don't use Marshawn Lynch. Like, don't use someone who's not an actor. Like, I think it's more of a minus than it is a positive having someone like Marshawn Lynch in this movie. And then the only other, like, kind of bigger issues is that some of the people who were in high school gave me serious Rizzo from Grease vibes, as you know, famously the woman who played Rizzo was like 33 years old when they did the movie about high schoolers. Not that anyone in that movie looks like a high schooler, but I always felt she was like the one that was seriously out of place. And that happens a couple of times. Like, I mean, I think everyone in this movie slightly pulls off a high schooler, but some do it better than the others. And then some of them, I just kind of was like, yeah, you're obviously in your late 20s and, what have you. Okay, switching gears though, I liked the ridiculousness of this movie. Like I said, at some points it was kind of jarring, but it was like almost refreshing. And it was done in a way that's like very different than Marvel movies do it, where it's like a serious scene is happening and then someone cracks a joke, like, and kind of lightens the mood and you can't experience the seriousness. This one, I don't feel like followed that format. And it wasn't like someone just cracks a joke. It's just something super over the top happens in the movie to just kind of remind you that this is a parody, but you're getting some serious content with it. And I thought they did that well at times. A couple of times I thought it was too jarring, but I thought overall they did a pretty okay job with it. And then some of the acting I think was much better than some of the other acting. Like, I thought the woman who's in The Bear, I thought she did the best, in my opinion. The other woman who's the other main star, who I guess co-wrote the movie, I wasn't feeling her performance as much as I was feeling the other main star's performance. But I mean, like, this is a movie that, if you want a somewhat serious theme, but then also it has some, like, kind of over the top antics to it that are kind of gonna make you chuckle a little bit and stuff like that, then this is a movie for you. If you're a person who just like doesn't like parodies and doesn't like movies that are really over the top, I would say this one's probably not for you. Just because it does at all times try to carry this serious message with this ridiculous, like what's happening on screen and how it's ridiculous. So if you're not a fan of those, then this is not a movie for you. In general, because of the representation in this movie, I would like to encourage people to see this movie, but I don't think seeing it in theaters is a must. I don't think you're going to miss anything if you watch it on the small screen compared to the big screen. Unless the fact that you were like, I would like to see more movies like this, I would like to support these kind of movies, then yes, you got to go see it in theaters, because that's how you... Ooh, that's a loud car. That is how you support these movies. So if what we're saying today makes you go, I would like to see more of that, then you got to go see the movie. Like, it's not going to translate well if you wait for streaming, in the sense that, like, it's not going to get as much credit and as much, oomph to make another one or something similar if you don't go see it in theaters. So if you're a crusader out there and you I like representation and I like seeing everyone represented, then I would say it's your job to see this movie. I'll put the gauntlet out there like that. Like, we see almost every movie coming out, so for our agenda of a podcast. But if you care about representation and you want to support these types of things, then the gauntlet's laid down. You have to go see it in theaters. Like, it's not gonna count as much as you wait for streaming. And that's where I'll leave it, with an ultimatum to people, laying it down.
Yes, throwing down the gauntlet.
Matt?
Well, I'm a big fan of high school movies. So this was kind of right up my alley. I had heard some good things about it, a little good buzz. And so I was interested and kind of excited to see what would come of this movie. And I think mainly what you get here is and I think you described it well, we have a serious story and then we have over-the-top stuff that just gets thrown in there at different random times. That was fine with me. And I think what you have is a pretty normal high school movie plot line. It's just that the main characters are gay.
Yeah.
And I think that there's some power in that. Is like, this is a movie and the main characters are gay, and yes, there's stuff about them being gay that of course comes into play, but in the end, it's a high school movie about gay kids, and that's great. Now, does that get a little thrown off by some of the over-the-top stuff coming into play? I don't think so. I think it's just kind of par for the course when you get some of this parody stuff thrown in. At one point they're being truthful about what it's like to be a gay young person, and at the other point they're poking fun at the high school football star and like what he might be thinking or doing. I thought that was okay, and I thought it worked well. What I didn't like is I felt like we got a really slow build to get to the kind of the final act, the climax. Yes, we were getting to know characters, and that was good, but I felt like there was a long stretch of getting to know characters and some intrigue and like building the fight club and stuff like that could have been tightened up a little bit. Because my favorite part of this movie is the ending. With about 20 minutes to go, the wheels come off in a good way, and everything goes out the window. Absurdity rules, and relationships are mended, and everyone is kissing everyone, and everyone is fighting everyone, and I really enjoyed myself for probably the last 20 minutes of the film. Not a long film, it's 90 minutes. So, the last 20 is a real nice ending of climax and resolution at the end that I really dug. So Overall, I probably would have said this is a pretty average movie until we got to the end, which really is going to boost it up for me to a much better rating, a much better feeling about it. And of course, as happens with me a lot, it seems like I really enjoy the end of a movie and it ends up giving me a good feeling about the whole movie. And I'm like, yeah, that was pretty good. That was a good time.
I think you saying that the end of this movie is the wheels coming off is the perfect description of the end of this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it really does. I mean, I don't know if I'd say like more than every other movie of that does like parody or something like that, but it really does just go completely off the rails, like
Right.
in a good, entertaining way. Like, I could see how people might think it was a little jarring, but it is very entertaining.
Yeah. And I feel like they do a really good job in the final scene, the final act, of paying off like things that they've built up throughout the movie, like little things that they've thrown in here. Oh, this guy's allergic to pineapple. How is that going to pay off? And
Right.
like a lot of that gets paid off in the last bit there, and you're like, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Oh, there's that. And
When
so
all
anyway.
the foreshadowing comes to fruition.
Yes. So, yeah, I enjoyed myself. I agree with you, Todd. I think that, if you want to have more movies about young gay people, which I think is good, it's always good for people to see themselves on the big screen and see themselves in culture. Yes, go see it in theaters, pay some money, and help their box office, because I think it is important and I think it is worthwhile, and I think you'll have a good time if you like parody, if you like high school movies, if you like just I would say a fun ride.
Yeah, especially if you know going into it that this movie is super over the top in some areas.
Yep.
Like very over the
Yep.
top.
Yeah.
Like
So,
I think I wasn't prepared for how over the top it was going to be.
right. I didn't have any idea either.
Yeah, I had seen the commercials for the trailers for this movie, and I did really want to see it because of all the buzz it's getting.
Mm-hmm.
But I was not prepared for how how over the top it was going to be at times.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing, I think. Like, some of it was jarring, but also I was like, this reaches a height it would not have gotten if it didn't have the serious storyline to it. Like, that you're grounded at some times, and then you're off on a rocket ship in others. Like, they play off of each other. So,
Yeah. Well, that's where I am.
nice.
I'm with a see it.
See it. Well, getting down to the real reason we're all here. How many car bombs would you give this movie? 0 being the worst because no bombs, no explosions, no nothing. What are you doing with your life? 5 being the best because then that's 5 separate cars you could blow up and ruin 5 different people's, nights. So, Matt, how many
Yes.
how many bombs would you like to destroy cars with?
Yes. Well, for legal reasons, I don't want to destroy any cars with bombs, Todd. But I am going to rate this movie at a 3 1/3 car bombs out of 5. Like I said, this would have been probably a middling rating if we didn't have the finish we had, but
Yeah.
that really elevated it for me, and I came out with a good feeling. So 3 1/3 or 3.3 repeating car bombs for me.
Nice.
What say you?
Well, I mean, like, as a person who knows you pretty well, as soon as the ending started, I was like, this is going to be, like, Matt's favorite part. Like, all the ridiculous things are happening. You are a fan of the ridiculous.
Yes.
So, I want to start by saying that my initial number was a 3, flat. It's going to be a 2.9, and I have to explain why. And
Okay.
it's a very specific reason why it's losing that 0.1.
Yes.
There's a scene where the quarterback of the football team, who they make fun of a lot in the movie and stuff like that, they're showing him at his house, and he's like kind of dancing, lip singing to like a certain song, and honestly, I had a hard time with that scene, not because of anything like almost anything. It's a small little detail. He was listening to the song on a CD player, like with headphones. And I was like, like,
I didn't even notice that. But
I know,
yeah.
he's clutching it to his chest and the whole time, and I just was like, a
CD player?
like, what?
Come on.
And that spiraled me, because I was like, wait, is this set in the past? I was like, I haven't stopped and really thought about it.
Right.
But then I was like, there's times where you see everyone's new phone. Like, and I was like, no,
Right.
that's not. And I was like,
No,
oh.
he should have had a phone. He should
Yeah.
have had some AirPods in.
Yeah,
and-
of this ridiculous movie, that was the most unbelievable part to me.
No, that's a good catch. I
Yeah.
have to agree with you there. So,
Essentially, since I just don't understand the choice. Like, it doesn't cost anything to have the actor pull out their phone and hook up, like, and then do the scene. Like, so someone specifically, like, we got to give that person a CD player. Right. And I was like, I just can't follow the logic there.
right.
So,
Like, I would even go along with, okay, you had some wired earbuds
Yeah.
that are connected to the phone. Like, that would be, like, that's pretty old school at this
Yeah.
point. But that would be more believable than a CD player.
honestly,
for sure.
a boombox playing the radio would have been more believable to me than
Yeah.
an actual compact CD player.
Yes. Well,
So, but I didn't take too much off, but I gotta stay true to my feelings. It bumped it down from a 3 to a 2.9. I gotta
Okay.
be honest with myself.
well, that's fair. All right. Well, any last thoughts before we wrap this puppy up?
No, nice little pleasant surprise of a movie. Mm-hmm. Go see it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Why
going to
not?
be my stance on almost not every movie we see. Obviously, we see some stinkers, but I'm such a pro movie guy, and I don't want to see theaters that continue to go under.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to start, like, guilt tripping people into really seeing movies.
Yes.
Each movie that we see. How can I attach it to a serious cause?
Come listen to Matt and Todd go to the movies. Come for the ratings, stay for the guilt trip.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. Well, that's going to wrap up this episode and guilt trip of podcasts of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies, where we review the movie Bottoms, and we gave it an overall rating of 3.116 repeating, car bombs out of 5, and that's a decent rating, and I think we were both pleasantly surprised by what we saw tonight. So yeah, go ahead and go see this. And the other thing that you can do is subscribe, download, and listen to our podcast, as you've done at least one of those if you're hearing my voice. So keep on doing that, and we will see you next time.
Da 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 da
Da-da.
da da da.
Da-da-da.